And now let's talk about it. So how does Dehancer compare to the film look creator that is freely accessible in Davinci Resolve Studio? There's a lot of breakage here, so I'm going to show you again before. So Dehancer Halation looks actually quite nice, is how it looks. So see how the reds look? I mean, the image looks a lot more normal to me right out the gate, and see how the curves look? Especially here. That could create some problems. Hello everybody and welcome back to my studio. Today we're going to talk about Dehancer. Why am I reviewing Dehancer today? Dehancer reached out to me so I would make an honest review of their film emulation plugin, and in exchange they're willing to give me a perpetual license of this plugin and a discount code for you so you can have 10% off, and on each sale I'm making like a small commission basically. So I was really curious to dive into Dehancer because it's a very popular plugin out there. It's used by a lot of filmmakers, YouTubers, and a lot of content creators. I was really curious to have a look at what it is, how it works. Is it clean? Does it break images? Are the texture operations looking interesting? I mean, my findings are actually quite surprising, and I can't wait to share them with you, especially comparing it to the newly released Film Look Creator in Davinci Resolve 19, which has a lot of similarities that we're going to see. But without further ado, let's dive in. Alright guys, so let's dive into Davinci Resolve and let's see how Dehancer is behaving on the images that I have on this timeline. And I'm going to start with this one because we've got a Macbeth chart and we've got skin tones, foliage, we've got a decent exposure, and it's going to be an interesting starting point to see how it's behaving. My project is set to Davinci Wide Gamut Intermediate, and I'm going from Davinci Wide Gamut Intermediate to display space with a color space transform from Davinci Wide Gamut to Rec 709 Gamma 2.4. This node allows me to have a cube representation that you see right here. And this node is just a grayscale RAM that we are going to feed into Dehancer to see how the profiles look on that one. So I'm going to go into my Open Effects and I'm going to load Dehancer Pro. It's version 7.2.1 at the time of this recording. And when I load it, we've got a lot of things happening here. First of all, we've got to change our input to Davinci Wide Gamut Intermediate because this is the color space I'm currently working in right now. And I'm going to turn off everything. I'm going to turn off the film negative, I'm going to turn off the print, I'm going to turn off film grain, I'm going to turn off, yeah, that's it. So just as a starter, I think it could be nice if Dehancer would come without anything ticked on when we first load it, so we can basically build as we go and just load what we are interested in. So we've got different modules here. So we've got an input module. We can compensate for exposure, temperature, tint, defringe, the fringe radius. Then we've got a film module and we've got a bunch of negatives that we can choose from. There is Agfa, Cinestill, Fuji Eterna, Fuji Chrome, Kodak. There's a lot of things. We've got, it's like a very packed menu of things that we can choose from. Then we've got the film developer. So this sort of like allows you to compensate for example, the contrast if you don't feel like you have enough, gamma correction and all that. If, for example, when you load a negative, you feel that you need a bit more boost in those parameters basically. Then we've got film compression, so you can basically act on the white point, for example, if you want to drop it down, color density, and other parameters. There's the expand as well. So if you want to, for example, drop your black point even further down, control your white point as well. There's a lot of tweaks that you can do with that. Then we've got the print module. So basically, with film, sometimes you've got like a film negative and it goes hand in hand with a print, and those two blocks work in tandem. For example, with Kodak, you've got like the Vision 3 and you can make it work with the Kodak 2383 print. And you've got it available here. So basically, if you stick to linear, it's not going to do anything, okay? But if you select 2383 print or Fuji, it's going to already drop a look on your image, basically. So this is off, this is on, and we've got the 2383 print. I'm going to turn it off for now. Color head, that's if you want to do some like tonal adjustments, yellow, blue, magenta, green, cyan, red. I mean, these are things that you can act on if you want to tweak the profile that you've just loaded in order to be a bit more creative. Film grain, we've got different presets as well, from 8mm to 65. Halation as well, you can act on it if you want to. Bloom, it's going to make like a halo around like the sources of light. Film damage is going to create some little like dust and scratches on your footage. Film breadth, get weave, I talked about these parameters in my previous video on the film look creator in Davinci Resolve. It globally acts in a similar way. Overscan, this is a little bit funny if you want to display the film negative or print like overscan. That can be interesting, for example, when you work on music videos or other really creative projects like that. You can play with that sort of thing and it can add a little bit of something, a little bit of a character to your image. Obviously, it's very like in your face, but sometimes it can be interesting. Vignette is if you want to add a vignette on your image. So basically, if I drop the exposure, you see that the edges of my image are darkening. You can adjust its size. You have a bunch of parameters to play with here. Monitor, it's basically like a false color indicator if you're interested in that. LUT generator, that's if you want to generate a LUT out of the profile that you've loaded up here, basically. And then if you have trouble with running Dehancer on your computer, you can go from the normal fast mode to high slow, for example. And if you don't have real-time playback, for example, this is going to help a little bit with that. So now let's dive into the quality of these profiles, because this is going to be interesting. I'm going to start by highlighting that Dehancer claims that it accurately emulates film in all of its analog features, achieves cinematic look with famous color and black and white films like Kodak Vision 3, Kodak Portra 400, and etc. So basically, they claim that when you load a profile, it's supposed to accurately emulate a certain film stock, for example. And in my testings, I found out that it might not be exactly that. And I'm going to show you why. So, for example, let's load the Kodak 2383 print film, okay? So I have it on right now and I have nothing else turned on, okay? I'm just having the 2383 print, okay? So that's off, that's on. So now let's compare what's the difference with this 2383 print in Davinci Wide Gamut and the 2383 print in ACES, because with Dehancer, you can also work in ACES. So I'm going to layer an ACES pipeline here, and I'm going to draw because I've made some preparations. And so let's go from here. Yeah, okay. And I'm going to decompose that node. Let's kill that for now. Okay. Dehancer. So basically, let's turn off this node. So here I have a color space transform that takes me from Davinci wide gamut to ARRI log C3. And here I've got an ACES transform that takes me from ARRI log C3 to ACES CCT AP1, which is the color space Dehancer is expecting when working in ACES. And here I have an ACES transform that takes me from ACES CCT to Rec 709, and I have my gamut compression turned on, like it is as well here as a safety procedure. So here's my Dehancer node, okay? And I'm going to turn the source into ACES CCT AP1. I'm going to make sure that I have the 2383 print enabled, okay? I'm going to turn on this node. And basically, if I turn off all these nodes, I have the Dehancer profile with the Davinci wide gamut color space transform rendering. And here is the ACES. So Davinci wide gamut, ACES. Davinci wide gamut, ACES. And you see that there is a very strong difference between the two. And the thing is, okay, so which one is the accurate one? Because the thing is, they claim they are accurate, and we have a wildly different representation between ACES and Davinci wide gamut. So here it is on this image, but let's actually have a look on other images as well. This one, off, on, off, on. See how on the cheek, these saturated reds, how they behave. They're like widely looking different on Davinci wide gamut and widely different on ACES. And actually with Davinci wide gamut, it's actually close to breaking. If you have a look on the nose here, on the tip of the nose, so that's Davinci wide gamut, that's ACES. Look, it's actually breaking here. How about this image? So this is Davinci wide gamut, this is ACES. So this is not really normal. I mean, this is a source of light. It shouldn't be completely dense like that in Davinci wide gamut, and I see a bit of breakage as well. So here is Davinci wide gamut, here is ACES. I see a lot of breakage here. There's a lot of breakage here, so I'm going to show you again before. So this is Davinci wide gamut with Dehancer and the 2383 print. This is ACES, okay? So you can see the breakage. Let's go to this image. So here is Davinci wide gamut, the 2383 print, and this is the 2383 print through an ACES pipeline. And they look too different. Now, to even prove my point further, I'm going to load in the 2383 print from Resolve that ships freely with Resolve. So you don't need to actually pay a plugin to load that print. Let's see how it looks. So I'm going to add another layer. And here again, I prepped stuff for you. So I'm going to load the 2383 print LUT D55. I'm going to load a color space transform. I'm going to show you what it does in a minute. So this node is the 2383 print D55 from Resolve. I'm going to call this LUT. And this is a color space transform that takes me from Davinci wide gamut to Rec 709 Cineon film log, which is what this LUT is expecting, basically, if we want to use it in this similar setup, so without a film negative applied prior. So now I've got Resolve 2383, so this is off, and now we've got the ACES 2383, okay? So this is Resolve, Dehancer through ACES. You see how the reds look? They look a lot denser. And now if I compare So this is Dehancer 2383 through Davinci Wide Gamut, and this is Resolve. And let's go to other images as well. So if I go back to this one, so this is Dehancer 2383, and this is Resolve. So they look actually quite close. And if I compare it to the Aces one now, widely different. See how the red patch looks on Aces? And to be totally transparent with you, I think that Resolve 2383, which ships with Resolve freely, looks slightly better. So now let's try another setup. So I've got Kodak Vision 3 250D film negative, and it's going through the 2383 print. And this is a very popular combo, and when you want to emulate film, this is an option of choice, basically. So let's see how they compare. So this is off, this is on, okay, through Davinci Wide Gamut. First of all, it looks very cold to me. The yellow patch is quite alive, but all the other patches on the Macbeth chart are quite desaturated and dull. Let's see how it looks through the Aces pipeline. So we are in Aces AP1, and we've got the Kodak Vision 3 250D and the print. So really similar setup, and look how different they look to one another. So this is Davinci Wide Gamut setup, this is Aces. To my eyes, both of these look unusable. So if I'm going to another image, for example, okay, this one, especially on the reds, look at that. This is Davinci Wide Gamut, this is Aces. And now to give you a little bit of comparison to see how Dehancer look in that setup, so 250D Vision 3 and Kodak 2383 print, let's compare that to other options out there. So that's another option. So again, it's 250D and 2383 print. I'm not gonna name the plugin, but here is how it looks. So see how the reds look? I mean, the image looks a lot more normal to me right side the gate. And if I compare it to our frame here, so this is the same combo through Aces, another plugin. See how the skin tones look, and to me this doesn't really feel normal. Now I think it's important to precise that other plugins out there, for example, they will have control of their display rendering transform. So for example, their look lives in a log space, but you can, within the plugin, you can transform to Rec 709 or HDR, for example, and Dehancer does not offer that. So inherently, Aces transform to 709 and color space transform when you work in Davinci Wide Gamut to Rec 709 look very different. So it's either, in order to have accurate profiles, they would compensate for the differences in the profile itself, so that when you use the color space transform, they look close enough to one another. Or they should have, I think, their own conversion to display to Rec 709, for example, so that we would get exactly what they measured when they built those profiles. So now let's wipe those two branches because we don't need them anymore, okay? And let's go back into Davinci Wide Gamut exclusively, okay? So let's have a look at these profiles, okay? So I'm going to load other profiles, for example, the Vision 3 200T, okay? So this again, before, after, doesn't really look great to me. But then, yeah, I'm just questioning the sort of, okay, is it really what I'm getting, okay? So is what I'm seeing on my monitor, is it what they really measured? Because, I don't know, it feels you know, I've graded film before, multiple times actually. I've graded some of these negatives that show in there. Doesn't really look like that, especially when it goes through a print. So I'm just questioning, okay, yeah. Now if I look at other profiles, for example, and let's deactivate the print here, let's play with other profiles as well. So we've got a black and white profile here, for example, okay. We've got Cinestill, looks a bit blue in the highlights, so if I turn on my ramp, okay, so again, yeah. So here, see how the curves look? Especially here. That could create some problems because it's not super smooth, okay? So it could create some problems. So just watch out when you use these profiles sometimes, just check it out, because last thing that you want is to run into some problems, okay? Especially, for example, here, it's looking a bit, you know, like aggressive, and on the gradient that I have on my display doesn't look super smooth. Yeah. And now, and if I check on some images, okay, so let's turn on the print. Yeah, that's the Kodak Hector 100. And it actually looks interesting, you know. On some projects, you might want to use that. I think it creates like a lot of blue in the highlights, and I mean, if that is what you want, you can play with these. And the point of Dehancer, I think, is you load different profiles, and when you land somewhere that you want, then you roll with it. But if there's like a single characteristic that you don't like, for example, let's say that, for example, you load that Kodak Hector 100, okay? So let's have a look on a different clip. So, okay. So here, okay, let's say I don't really like the blue highlights. Then I have to completely change my profile, because the blue highlights are a very strong characteristic of this look. And I'm gonna have to either cope with it or select an entirely different profile. So depending on what you work on, if you've got a client feedback that says, I don't want the blue highlights, then you might need to change the entire profile and then change your entire grade. And yeah, so that could backfire. So you need to be cautious when selecting a profile. You need to select something that basically your client approves, ideally, because if you have to change a characteristic that is strong in one of these profiles, it's going to be complicated to work around it. And surely I can, for example, go highlight stone, and I could like inject some yellows in there, but that would be like fighting something that was already baked in there. And if I look at the curves of what it's doing, and it doesn't look too unclean to me, but just be cautious with that. And now if I have a look on the color cube to see how these profiles look. So basically, if my cube shape looks super weird, I have to be worried, basically. And here it looks quite smooth, okay? So let's, you know, go through different profiles. I'm going to select them with my panel. It's going to be quicker. And let's go through them. So the cube shapes look fine to me. you know, I don't see anything egregious. So yeah, there's a lot of profiles and you can play with these and have fun. Basically, it's what you see is what you get. So if you're working on a experimental project, music video, or you need like a very special look, then go for it and have a look at these profiles and select the one that you like best. Now when it comes to HDR, because obviously these profiles, they work in a very big color volume. In Davinci Wide Gamut, for example, ACES, and then you can output to HDR if you want to. And I had a look to what it looks like, and it looked very similar. For example, if you load the 2383 print, it's going to look very similar to what you would have if you transform the 2383 you've got from Resolve to HDR. Basically, it's operating in a similar way in my testings, at least. So it's going to look quite similar. So I don't really see a particular advantage to use Dehancer for its HDR compatibility. Basically, it's not really going to be tremendously important. And now let's talk about it. So how does Dehancer compare to the film look creator that is freely accessible in Davinci Resolve Studio? Because we've got a lot of similarities between the two, actually. So let's actually load the film look creator. So I'm going to my Open Effects, loading film look creator, okay? And I'm in Davinci Wide Gamut, great, and I'm going to go clean slate, going to load Rochester, for example, okay? And I'm going to go back to a very standard sort of like emulation, which would be the Vision 3 Kodak. So let's go 50D and let's load the 2383 print, okay? So we've got that on the one hand, and then let's load the film look creator, okay? So I'm going to increase my contrast just a little bit, and like just if I compare these two, so I've got a very cool wash in my image with Dehancer, okay? And my colors are not really vibrant. It's not something that I find like super appealing, but if I load like Rochester, all of a sudden, I mean, it looks very filmy to me and it looks better. So it's like, obviously Dehancer has scanned a lot of different profiles and you can spend some time trying different combinations and all that, being careful that it's not breaking some of your images, because let's go to neons again. This is the Dehancer profile and this is Rochester. So one looks a lot more natural than the other one on this very wide gamut like neon image. And yeah, so the Rochester preset gives me a really nice filmy look that I can tweak, and it's holding up better in this particular case. Okay, so obviously film developer, so there's contrast, film compression and all that. These are controls so you can basically tweak your profile. And in the film look creator, I would have not all these controls, but I have similar controls. I have contrast, I have highlights to compress my white point, for example, okay? So I can do things like that. So it gives me a fair bit of control. I have split tone as well. So yeah, I have these, okay? So now let's go through the other presets. So film grain, okay? Film grain, there's quite a bit of options with Dehancer. And film look creator, we've got film grain as well. I mean, to be honest with you, this would be enough for me. I don't really need, these sliders are enough to tweak, and if you want even more control, there is the grain OFX and resolve, which is right here. I'm going to load it. Film grain. So you load this OFX and see all the controls that you've got. So if you really want some extra control with grain, Resolve has even more control than Dehancer. Because here, basically changing like the strength and the size of the grain, and then I can just change the amount. And on the OFX grain, I have, texture, grain size, the ratio, the strength. I can control the per channel, shadows, midtones, highlights. There's a lot of things that I can do, and I have also loads of presets as well. So yeah, so you are covered in Resolve with grain as far as I'm concerned. So halation, okay? So let's see how it looks like. So we've got Dehancer here, okay? And I'm going to load halation, and I'm going to load Dehancer here, and I'm going to turn off the halation. And my film look creator mode here, I am going to reset it, okay? Go clean slate. So it does nothing, but I'm going to load halation, okay? So enable halation. And I'm going to compare the two. So this is film look creator halation. Dehancer, film look creator halation, okay? Let's actually increase the strength here a little bit. So going, for example, no remjet. Let's load. Yeah, Dehancer halation is going to be more present, so it's present on the hands here and other parts. But okay, so I believe Resolve gives you some really nice halation with Resolve Studio, okay? If you want even more control, you can play with the halation and just play with the threshold. So let's act on the hands as well. Let's increase like the strength. Let's crank the spread. So Dehancer halation looks actually quite nice. I think the film look creator halation looks really nice right off the bat, but Dehancer gives you some really nice presets to choose from, and they look quite nice out of the gate. So I think they've done a really good job with the halation. What else we got? So now bloom. So Dehancer has some bloom that is enabled here, and the film look creator has some bloom as well. And here I'm basically loading film look creator bloom, and I'm comparing it to Dehancer. So I don't have bloom activated here, but I have it here. So it's the direct comparison between the two. And it seems that Dehancer bloom is attacking the highlights sooner than the film look creator does, but they're going to look quite similar. Film damage. So film damage, let's see what we've got in the film look creator. Okay, so Dehancer allows you to add some dust and scratches, some film damage. So for example, if I go 8mm and I crank the amount and I press play. So here is film damage on, and it's cranked to the maximum. And you don't have that in the film look creator, but I believe there is an effect in Resolve that is called film damage. So if you load film damage, okay, so basically Resolve is going to help you add some dust, and the scratches, yeah, these are actually looking less nice. So yeah, I think Dehancer, when it comes to texture and The film damage, I think it's nice. And that's something that you could add into your arsenal when it comes to texture work. That can be nice if you want to use the texture from Dehancer. Film damage, I actually like it. Okay, so film breadth. It's going to basically do slight variations of exposure, and your image is going to vibrate a little bit in exposure. And you've got something really similar here in the film look creator, which is called flicker. Okay, so yeah, I think it's almost identical. Let's move on. We've got gate weave. Okay, so gate weave. So it's zooming in a little bit on the image, and it's going to move like up and down, and it's going to shake a little bit. And in Film Look Creator, you've got something like that, which is called exactly the same. It's called gate weave. Film gate. We've got in Dehancer some film gate. Okay, so film gate, where is it? Film gate. It's called overscan here. And the overscan is going to look a bit more advanced in Dehancer. So if I move to this image, for example, and you sort of like play with it, you've got different presets. So Dehancer overscan is going to be more complete than the one from the Film Look Creator, which I'm going to show you right now. See? So you've got sort of like less options with the film gate from Resolve. So if the film gate is something that you would want to have, for example, for some music videos or for like very creative projects, Dehancer is going to give you slightly more options when it comes to that. Vignette, you have vignette as well in the Film Look Creator. And then monitor, I mean, to be honest with you, I'm not using that. I'm not using the false color when I'm grading. I'm just using my scopes and my eyes, and I would never turn this on, like never ever. But if that's something that you would want to have, for example, to match shots, or I don't know, just check if you're clipping or stuff like that, you can use that. So to summarize, I believe Dehancer is actually pretty nice for the texture operations. The halation is nice. It's slightly different than Resolve, so if you want a bit more control, maybe try and explore that one. Bloom gives you slightly different results. Film damage, I think, is something you don't have natively in Resolve. I mean, not like that, so that can be interesting when it comes to texture work, when you want to emulate like very gritty and dirty film. That's something that you can actually explore. I think it's nice. The overscan, if you want, again, a bit more control, go for Dehancer overscan, it's nice. And all the other effects, you sort of like have them in Resolve already, like the flicker, the gate weave. Now, when it comes to the film profiles, I think Dehancer, okay, they look different in Aces and in Davinci Wide Gamut, and I'm questioning a little bit the renderings. I'm wondering, okay, which one looks right, and do even these look right actually? And in Resolve, you've already some really nice options. You've got the Film Look Creator presets, you've got the Film Look LUTs as well, and that's quite a bit to play with already. And they look really nice, and especially for the Film Look Creator presets, Rochester, for example, when it comes to like wide gamut images and very neon saturated sources, it's going to handle them really well and in a nicer manner than some of the Dehancer profiles that we've checked in this video. Alright guys, thank you for tuning in. I hope that this video was helpful. I tried to go in depth and in detail into each module of Dehancer and how it compares to other solutions out there, especially the built-in one in Davinci Resolve. Now, if you're interested in purchasing a Dehancer license, either the full version or the textural operations, I have a discount code for you that is appearing on screen, and you have it in the description as well. So use that if you want to. And please comment down below. Let me know what you thought about this review. Let me know, okay, if you like or dislike Dehancer. I'd be super happy to read your comments about it down below, and like the video, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the future updates that I'll be making. I'll be seeing you in the next one. Bye for now.